Library, and today I'm going to be talking about our free Comic Book Day comics. This year is the 20th anniversary of Free Comic Book Day, and it's like, oh my gosh, I have been involved with it from the beginning. I'm getting old. But Free Comic Book Day is always a fun time for comic shops, for comics lovers, and for libraries. Libraries have been involved with Free Comic Book Day right from the beginning. And so we have been bringing it here to Bay County Library for several years. And this year I'm going to show you what we have for our offerings. There were 50 comics this year for all ages, ranging from the younger kids all the way through adults. And we're going to have grab-and-go bags again, as we did last year. This year we'll have 4 assorted comics in each bag, and we'll have them in 4 different age groups. We'll have children, teen, the older teens for 15 and up, and the adults. And so just look for the boxes that are labeled for those different age levels, and you get 1 grab-and-go bag per person, and do it by the appropriate age, okay? So, on to the offerings. And there are, again, assorted books. Some of them, like Allergic, is actually the first section of a graphic novel that is coming out. Imagine, you have wanted a puppy all your young life, and you're going to the shelter to adopt a puppy, and within half an hour, you can't breathe. Your eyes are swollen shut. You are allergic. What can you do? This particular comic just has that very first, the excitement of going to the shelter and then going through the testing and finding out that she's so allergic. So that's that. But we're going to try to get that book into the library when it comes out so that you can read the rest of the story. Okay? Now, Archie has been around since the 1940s, and he's still popular. And this one is Archie Past, Present, and Future Fun. And in these stories, you'll find different versions of Archie, from the classic to the more modern, baby Archie, grown-up Archie, all kinds of Archies in here. Just a lot of fun. And something that has been happening more now is we have graphic adaptations of prose books. So this is the Bailey School Kids, and we have that chapter book series here in the library, and I'll bet a lot of elementary schools have it too. But this is a graphic novel adaptation, and this again is a sampling of some of the story, so you can see what it's going to look like. If you love Bailey School Kids, check this one out. And also, if you've ever read the Who Was biography series, now they're coming out, some of them adapted into graphic novel format. And what we have here is the first section of Who Sparked the Montgomery Bus Boycott. So this one is about Rosa Parks. And again, it's done in the comic book version. So this has, again, the first few pages of that book, which is coming out soon. We also have Star Wars, The High Republic Adventures. So if you love Star Wars adventures, you can try this one out. We have things like the Smurfs' Tales, those crazy blue people. And Sonic the Hedgehog is celebrating his 30th anniversary. My son still has his Sonic toy at home, even though he's an adult. But so here's some more Sonic fun that you might be able to get. Another adaptation from the prose books. We have the series, The Last Kids on Earth, here at the public library, but now, again, it's coming out in the graphic novel format. So it'll be lots of fun to look at if that happens to be in your bag. This is a new book that's coming out, Kyle's Little Sister. Now, I'm the oldest sibling in my family, but my sister told me how she always had to say, I'm not like Kathy. Don't compare me to my sister. I'm not her. Grace, Kyle's little sister, is facing the same problem, especially now that they're both going to be together in middle school. And everyone is saying, wow, she doesn't look much like Kyle, does she? Is she an athlete like him? And she's, I'm my own person. So this is another new book that's coming out, and here are the first few pages of it for people to read and maybe get excited about reading the whole book. And this is a continuation of John Green's Investigators. Yes, they are alligators who investigate mysteries and crime and all kinds of fun stuff. And we have the first several volumes here in the public library system. So this, again, is the first bit of the new book that will be coming out soon. And it's Investigators, Ants in Our Pants. And how many kids have grown up reading R.L. Stine's books? Well, I was a young librarian when they started coming out, because I'm a little bit older than most. But R.L. Stine is still writing. But now he's doing Just Beyond, which is in the graphic novel format. And this has a portion of a story from his latest Just Beyond graphic novel that is coming out. So if you like spooky stuff, try this one out. In the teen books, we have very popular favorites, such as The Legend of Korra and Avatar: The Last Airbender. So there's one story from Legend of Korra and one story from Avatar in this book. This one has Avengers and also Hulk. So there are two stories in here for those who love the superheroes. And another one, Spider-Man and Venom. Yeah. So these are, again, comics with stories, so you can try these out. Another Star Wars. Now, this one has two stories from the manga Star Wars books, which are coming out. So this is Star Wars: The High Republic, The Edge of Balance, and also Star Wars: Guardians of the Whills. And there are a few pages of those two different stories in here. So manga format, so black and white, okay? Something a little bit different, Stray Dogs. One of the people who reviewed it compared it and said, it's like Disney meets Psycho. It's all from the viewpoint of the dogs. And there's something a little weird, because there's this household full of dogs with this man, and they all say that they were adopted when their owners threw them out. But little Sophie, who's having a little bit of an accident there, she actually remembers the man he killed her owner. So there's a mystery going on here, told from the viewpoint of the dogs. This is Stray Dogs. So if you like your suspense and you love dogs, you might try that one out. Space Pirate Captain Harlock. Captain Harlock was a classic anime and manga from way back, long time ago. This is a French take on Captain Harlock, translated into English and brought to the United States. So this is in full color, not like our manga, which is black and white. And the characters actually do look a lot like the original characters that I remember from watching old Captain Harlock anime. But this is just a fun space adventure, and if you like manga and you want to try something a little different, like what the French think manga should look like, you can try this one out. I gotta tell you, this is one of my favorites. This is School for Extraterrestrial Girls. And I think the first volume is here at Bay County Library in the teen room. It's written by a friend of mine, Jeremy Whitley. And this one is actually set right after the events of the first volume. But you don't have to worry if you haven't read that one yet. All the girls, they look human, except if they take off the special rings that they wear, they show their true alien selves. Yes, they are all aliens. And they've been put into this special school for extraterrestrial girls. So there's a little bit of a mystery, a little bit of adventure, a lot of fun. Give this one a try if you get it in your bag. Bountiful Garden is another new one. This is going to be coming out, and this one is written by Ivy Noel Weir, who has done some other graphic novels that I have enjoyed. This is science fiction and mystery, and all the characters are like teenagers, but they're all like scientists and engineers and military people, but they're teenagers, no adults whatsoever. They were woken up early on the ship, and now they got to figure out what is going on and how they're going to keep surviving. So, Bountiful Garden. Street Fighter has also been around for a long time as a game, as well as comics. If you're like my boys who have played Street Fighter and still do, you might enjoy something like this. So this is a lot of the fighting action put into comic book form. And this is their back to school special. And another new one, this is We Live the Last Days. This is like dystopian science fiction, post-apocalyptic. We have a bunch of young people, kids, who are wandering around this very terrible looking environment with monsters and older adults who are hunting things and not taking too kindly to the kids. But that is We Live. Again, this is the first part of an upcoming book. So that is our kids and teens. Oh, one more. This is a sampler from Oni Press, and they do some really interesting and fun fantasy. So this one has little snippets from Jonna and the Unpossible Monster. Yes, Jonna does love to fight monsters. Mooncakes. This is the Sprite and the Gardener, and the Tea Dragon Tapestry. And we have some of these books in the Bay County Library. But these are some new continuations of those series. And you can see there's some really gorgeous, colorful art. There's Jonna. She's a lot of fun. Moving on to our older teen and adult selections. And here we have some things like, if you like horror manga, this is Zom 100, 100, The Bucket List of the Dead, and Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba. And these are just small selections from those two different series. These are, because it's horror and action, we do keep this more for older teens and adult readers. But there's a lot of blood, even though it's in black and white. Classic Zorro. Yes, Zorro has been around for a very long time. I used to watch the old Disney series on TV when I was a kid. This is from American Mythology Productions, and in here you have one story that's very new. It has Zorro fighting like supernatural monsters, And then the second story in here is more like the classic Zorro comics, like just like it was in the old TV series. And Zorro is something that American mythology is bringing back, and actually he's come back in different forms in comics over the last 20 years. This is the latest one. We have a Valiant comic, which is with Ninjak and also XO Manowar. And these are superhero action comics and some horror. They're advertising. There's so snippets of stories in here from those two, plus advertisements for some of their other series. This is another new publisher. There have been a number of new publishers just popping up in the last couple of years. 10 Ton Press is a new publisher, and they're just having samples of some of their books in here. And they go from superhero to zany animal humor to rock and roll biographies. They're doing one on Rob Zombie. And also Becoming Frankenstein. So these are a couple pages from Becoming Frankenstein. And the Rob Zombie is going to be talking about Metallica and some of the other classic heavy metal groups. But that one is all in black and white. So this just gives you a little bit of an idea of what 10 Ton Press is going to be bringing out in comic form. Rent a really shy girlfriend. This is a manga. And in here, Sumi, this is the first few pages of the spin-off series from one called Rent a Girlfriend. We do have this in older teen because of that whole concept. But what you see in here, in these pages, is she is super shy and awkward. And she's trying to figure out, just going into a coffee shop and ordering a pastry and a drink, it's an ordeal. Anyone who's ever been kind of shy, I think you will relate to the awkwardness that Sumi is experiencing. It's like, where do I sit? Can I find an empty table? Is there an empty table anywhere? Things like that. And when her favorite pastry is sold out, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna order? All of that comes out in here. And the expressions on her faces, and here she is, finally enjoying her coffee and donut. So that is, again, a new series that is spinning off of one that I don't think we have it here in the library, but you might want to check it out online sometime. Now, Solo Leveling we do have in the adult section. And this is a Korean comic. And this is actually in color to give you a nice idea of what Solo Leveling is all about. So it had been a webcomic, and now we do have the first volume for sure. I know I ordered the second one, and it's in the adult section. Life is Strange. This is another science fiction comic, and it does give you some good background about what went on in previous stories and a little bit about the characters, and gives you a nice little snippet of what's going on in the story. Enter the House of Slaughter. Yeah, it's, oh my gosh. But this is by James Tynion, who is doing some fantastic work for DC with the Batman and other superhero stories. So this is more of an original story. It's more mystery, suspense, a little bit of horror tossed in. And yeah, so it is kind of bloody, so that's why we have it for older teens and adults. From Dark Horse, we have the Critical Role, The Mighty Nine Origins. That is from a game. And also a little bit from The Witcher. And even if you haven't played the games, if you've been watching the series starring Henry Cavill, then you might want to give, if you have this one in your bag, give it a try. But there's the Mighty Nine origin story is really nice in here. It's a complete short story, and also a complete short story of The Witcher in here. We also have Lady Mechanica, very steampunk, adventure, science fiction, and again, a lot of action, a little kind of violent, so we keep it in the older teen and adult. A lot of gaming type things. Here's Assassin's Creed Dynasty and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And these are actually manga from Tokyopop. So there are a couple of complete short stories in here from those two. So if you like that, if you like Assassin's Creed, or if you get his, give it a try. And then Blade Runner. Blade Runner has been, a classic modern classic science fiction movie. But in the comics, they've been carrying it on. So this has Blade Runner 2029 and Blade Runner Origins. Those are two ongoing comic series. And in here you have a little bit from each of the two series. So if you do like that whole Blade Runner concept, and we are getting some Blade Runner graphic novels in the library in the adult section. Okay, moving on to the adult books. I'm just going to show the cover for this one because, but we have Vampirella. She's been around for a long time. She's always the sexy vampire. So we have ongoing comic series. She gets into all kinds of different adventures, all kinds of superhero type things. She's interacted in comics with superheroes and others. White Ash is a fantasy horror new graphic novel that's coming out, so this is like the beginning part of that story. And also another one that's coming out called The Game. So again, these are a little bit more graphic in the violence, so we keep them for adults. Another Vampire the Masquerade. So yes, if you love vampires, you're going to be getting some. Now, I've just discovered this and I love this. This is Trece, and this is Filipino horror, written by Filipino creators. It is a Netflix series, so if you want to try it out, the story is set in the Philippines, but using Filipino culture, Filipino legends. It's fascinating. So there's one complete story in here, and now I really want to order this book for our library because it looks absolutely wonderful. I'm not a huge horror fan, but when it's folklore from a particular country done well by people from that country, it's amazing. And this is one of those. Okay, so J. Michael Straczynski created Babylon 5, among other TV series, but he's also been writing novels and comics. This is his series, Resistance Uprising. So there's a sampling from his story. Another one that he's worked on with Mike Choi called Moths. So there's a small sampling of that. And another little tidbit from Not All Robots. And these are from AWA, which is that comic publisher just got started in 2020. This is just a little crazy. Trailer Park Boys. And there's some language, which is why we have it in adult section. But this is like zany, crazy humor with a lot of bad language. So watch out for that. Red Room is horror, mystery. Ed Piskor has been doing independent comics for a very long time. And so his work is really different from what most people would look at. But if you want to try some horror that's a little bit graphic, but there's a little substance to the story, you can give Red Room a try. Gloomhaven, Hole in the Wall, is fantasy adventure, and there's a complete short story in here, which is really good. So, and it does have, you know, the fantasy monsters that they're fighting. Very cool. Judge Dredd is another, this one has been going on in England for a very long time, decades. There was a movie, not a great movie, but it was kind of fun. But this is a new Judge Dredd story for people who like that kind of science fiction, adventure, law and order taken to the nth degree with a lot of action. So you can see Judge Dredd on his motorcycle there on the back cover. On Tyranny is a prose book that we have in our adult nonfiction. But the author decided he was going to adapt it into a sort of graphic format. So this is a sampling from the upcoming graphic nonfiction book adaptation of his prose book, On Tyranny. And this is kind of what it looks like. It's not a traditional graphic novel, but he's taken a lot of what he has said and tried to use photographs, art, and other things to get his point across. So if you wanted to check out the book that we have in our library and then compare that section with what he's done here in this free comic book, and look forward to that graphic adaptation coming out sometime soon. The Boys, again, if you've been watching TV, you know that this is superheroes, but definitely not Batman and Robin or Superman or Wonder Woman. So The Boys has been an ongoing comic book series for a long time, and this is a new series that's coming out with The Boys, and so you have a section of it here. Now, Dungeon is a French comic translated into English, and it is, as it says, Dungeon is back. It's coming back. The original creators, Louis Trondheim-Boulet and Joan Sfar, they were the original ones who did it. It's humorous adventure in the dungeons with the monsters and other creatures. And their NBM is bringing back new editions of the original stories. But if you want a little fantasy humor in the French style with some really cool, fun illustrations and characters, you can try The Dungeon is Back. Now, Black and Cal Exit. Black has a concept that I thought was really intriguing. What if the only people who had superpowers were black? No Caucasians, no whites, no Asians, just the blacks. What would happen? And Cal Exit is, again, the concept, what would happen if California left the United States? What effect would that have on everything in the society, in the state? So, just some things to think about with this one. And lastly, the Overstreet Guide to Collecting Comics. This one is always fun because they give information about collecting comics, but they do it in comic book stories. So the Overstreet Price Guide is actually more you learn about what is the value of certain comics when they came out and so on. But this one just gives you some kind of fun information about collecting comics and how you should collect comics and why you should collect comics. Don't do it because you think you're going to make a whole lot of money in a few years. That's not the point. You should be collecting them because you love them. Okay? And the cover happens to be done by another friend of mine. He was one of my fellow Eisner judges in 2005, Steve Conley. And that's his little character Bloop right there. So I just loved when I saw a little Bloop on the cover. So this is a lot of fun. So those are the free comic books for this year. And as I said, we'll have grab-and-go bags for those 4 different age levels, and they will be available starting August 14th, which is Free Comic Book Day. I forgot to mention that earlier. So if you come by on Saturday, August 14th, you can get your free comics. Like I said, 1 bag per person based on the age level. We may have some throughout the rest of the coming week, depending on how many, go out. Come on by. Just one little thing. If you were ever wondering, are comics really good reading? Yes, they are. Reading comics is literacy. And more publishers, trade publishers, are now putting out graphic novels for kids. And they have some reasons. Visual learners can connect better with the art in the graphic novels. And they actually promote literacy because if the kids are more willing to read the comics, they will stay with it and read, and they'll be willing to read. The willingness to read, the desire to read is key, all right? And that is something comics provide. I've been reading comics since I was 5 years old. Before I could read a regular picture book, I was reading the comic strips in the newspaper. And I've been reading ever since, never stopped, not through high school or college or even grad school and library school. I was always reading comics. Some people say, well, you should read a real book. Comic books have more special words, more of what they call the rare words, the harder words, the words that you want to learn. Comics average 53.5 rare words per 1,000 words. In children's books, you get maybe 30.7. And in adult prose books, it's just a little bit under, it's about 52.7. Now, if you're reading Hemingway, he didn't have very many rare words. He used very simple language, okay? But if you're talking about building your vocabulary, comics will do it very well. All right, thanks.